Thank you so much, Bill and Ashok, for this fantastic container demo. Now I'd like to introduce the Senior Vice President of Platform Technology from Comcast, Marc Muehl.
Thank you, Marc. It's nice to be here.
It's awesome to have you here, Marc. Tell us a little bit what you do at Comcast.
So I'm part of the technology and product group at Comcast. This is the organization that's responsible for building all of the products and services that we sell to consumers and to businesses under the Comcast Business and Xfinity brands.
Now, you've been at Comcast for how long?
9 years.
That's quite some time. I'm sure you've seen it evolve a lot from a business and from a technology perspective.
Very much so. I mean, we've really been focused on the technology side, on moving a lot of the intelligence of our experience into the cloud so that we can provide a much richer experience to customers.
So you've been moving a lot of the intelligence into the cloud. What kind of challenges have you faced on that journey?
So it's really put a strain on our data center infrastructure. We've really had to grow significantly to move all of that capability onto systems that are running inside of our data center. Comcast has a public and private cloud strategy where we have some of our technology running inside public cloud providers and some of it in private cloud, in our own internal private cloud. Building that infrastructure in a way that is both scalable and reliable, especially as the numbers of systems grows into the 10,000s and hundreds of thousands, has really become a challenge.
Excellent. And what kind of technologies, what kind of tools are you looking to help you solving those challenges?
So we're looking for ways to run lots of systems at scale. Everything from virtual machines with VMware and through KVM and OpenStack to containerization with Mesosphere and Kubernetes.
So you really are looking to run any application in any stack on a kind of unified data cloud that serves all those data needs.
Right. We're at a phase now where we're trying to drive a lot of our infrastructure to more common infrastructure. Typically, in the past, we would build bespoke physical infrastructure for each application. And over the last few years, we've really tried to shift away from that, where the application developers are developing to a platform, to a physical infrastructure platform that's much more consistent.
What does that mean for the data cloud, for the data infrastructure that's underlying all of this?
Well, it really becomes a challenge because building a particular piece of infrastructure for a particular use case is pretty straightforward. You can optimize that infrastructure to handle the workload that you anticipate. But then when you start to layer on different use cases on top of that common infrastructure, it becomes much more challenging because you have a high-performance database that needs really fast I/O, living with a database that's collecting system metrics and doesn't need the I/O performance necessarily, but needs to have access to very efficient, cost-efficient, large volumes of storage so that it can have a long history to look over.
So it sounds like you really need a data infrastructure, a data cloud that molds the infrastructure, orchestrates the data just to precisely fit your application needs, and that can be a large spectrum.
That's exactly right. We want to be able to identify the workload that's happening on top of a given piece of infrastructure, on top of a piece of shared infrastructure, and optimize that workload on that common infrastructure. And the optimization choices that we might make from one application to the next might be very different.
So it sounds like what you really need is policy.
That's exactly right. We need to be able to identify the specific workload that's working on top of this common infrastructure and have the infrastructure respond accordingly to that workload.
And on top of that, not only policy, but policy that can automatically fit multiple tenants and roles that multiple tenants actually can bring to all of this unified infrastructure.
That's exactly right.
Excellent. So we've been working on a pretty exciting demo together. It's basically a real-time IoT data lake, data cloud. It also actually brought Google into the fold on Kubernetes to actually bring this data cloud into microservices, and then we use Datera for the persistent backend. What kind of use cases do you see for an environment like that?
Well, this is really the first of many, I think. It's been a great learning experience for Comcast as we've gotten to know how the container systems work, and we see in that technology a great opportunity to really help us scale our developer pipeline all the way out through deployment and version control and upgrade process. And then on the storage end, we want to make sure that whatever storage technology we pick, we can use it for as many different types of workloads and as many different environments as possible. So working with Datera, we found that it was incredibly easy to get it working in the first place on a technology that we were unfamiliar with. And we anticipate being able to scale it up, not just for this IoT workload that we're working on today, but for a lot of our data analytics platform.
Excellent, Marc. That's great. So let me perhaps take a step back and ask you a little bit, what is your vision for the future? Where do you see infrastructure? Where do you see data clouds going in the kind of big picture?
Well, I think that we are in the era of the public-private hybrid cloud. And I sort of think of it as this slider where you'll have a certain amount of public and a certain amount of private, and this will be the mix. We'll be in this world for the foreseeable future. At Comcast, we sort of make the choice on an application basis. Do we want to run this application in public, private, or a mixture of the two, perhaps to achieve better resiliency characteristics and so on? So we're going to be in this world for a while. As far as storage goes, there's always this interesting progression of capabilities. And one of the reasons we're so excited to work with Datera is that we see that roadmap that we're really looking for, moving to a higher degree of sophistication around these capabilities, not just the policy stuff that we were talking about, but things like data replication. Today we provide a lot of resiliency to our data platforms at the application layer, where the application is sort of handling the geographic resiliency that we need in multiple data centers and different availability zones and so on. And I think we should ask ourselves occasionally, is that where we want that intelligence? Or do we want to push some of those responsibilities deeper into the infrastructure layer so that the storage subsystem comes up with those capabilities for us, and the applications running on top of it just get to use it?
So it sounds like you're looking for data infrastructure that just molds itself, that orchestrates the data just to precisely fit the needs of your applications.
Just like we want to be able to orchestrate the applications, we want to be able to orchestrate the infrastructure underneath it.
Excellent. And then on top of that, of course, once you have your applications encapsulated in policies that are inherently invariant and portable, you can move them around as you please.
Exactly, within our own private cloud and to the public cloud.
Thank you very much, Marc. It's been such a pleasure to have you here.
It's been great. Thank you, Marc.
Thank you, Marc. Thank you. And since we've been talking about data clouds, let me pass it back to Bill, who will actually show us a little bit in that department.